The federal government has approved contracts worth 41.872 billion naira for the immediate repairs of the Third Mainland Bridge in Lagos, the Enugu-Anambra Road, as well as procurement of 337 operational vehicles for the Nigeria Customs Service. The federal government also authorized installation of baggage scanners at least 6 railway stations. It's part of the government's efforts to ensure the safety of passengers and railway infrastructure nationwide. State House correspondent Adesua Omoran reports.
In recent years, Nigeria has been investing heavily in its railway infrastructure as part of plans to expand and modernize the transportation sector. But as the rail network continues to expand, concerns about security and safety at railway stations have also been growing. There have been reports of attacks by armed robbers and other criminal elements targeting passengers and staff of railway stations. In one high-profile incident in 2022, a group of terrorists attacked a train in Kaduna State, killing at least one person and kidnapping several others for ransom. In a bid to further improve security of passengers, the council has approved funds for the provision of baggage scanners.
The Federal Ministry of Transportation had 2 memos today, which I presented on behalf of the ministry, and it had to do with the provision of scanners at all railway stations all over the country. You will all agree with me that in view of the importance of security of lives and property, that such equipment has to be installed at our railway stations. We are starting this railway revolution. We are trying to put in place a lot of things in the railway. We don't want people to come and damage all the government has been trying to put in place in that sector. Scanners cost 495 million naira.
According to the information disclosed, walk-through and handheld scanners, among others, will be set up at railway stations situated between Abuja, Kano and Kaduna over the next 4 months. Additionally, reprieve may have come the way of thousands of daily commuters who use the Third Mainland Bridge in Lagos, as government's approval of maintenance work, costing over 6 billion naira, is expected to improve driving conditions.
Some of you might ask, and I was asked before, that, okay, we did some work on the Third Mainland Bridge before, where are there potholes now on it? So this contract responds to the potholes that have become manifest on the entire pavement of the deck of the bridge, spanning 11 kilometers, and the interchanges, Adeniji Adele, Adekunle, and Bagada ramps that all link the bridge.
The federal cabinet also observed a minute of silence in honor of eminent jurist and former Attorney General of the Federation, Bola Ajibola, who died over the weekend at the age of 89. A total of 9 memos were presented and considered during the cabinet meeting presided by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, as President Muhammadu Buhari is away on a week-long official trip to Saudi Arabia. From the presidential villa here in Abuja, Adesua Omoran for Arise News.
Well, thank you very much, Adesua, for that report. Dr. Abati.
Adesua Omoran for Arise News. Yeah, she's doing well. She's representing us very well.
Very well.
In Abuja. Well. But let's look at the issue. Okay, the Federal Executive Council of the Federation, or better still, the Executive Council of the Federation, as it is otherwise known, yesterday, engaged, as we have seen in some of the recent meetings, in a flurry of contract awards and also allocation of funds for projects. Well, I think as an ordinary Nigerian, the first thing that should occur to you is to ask the question. A government that has just about less than 50 days to go, thereabouts, why would the same government be engaged in giving out contracts, allocating funds that are not even available? The International Monetary Fund has been saying, look, Nigeria has a revenue crisis. Even the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Ms. Ahmad, has made it clear that we have a revenue crisis. We're looking for how to get revenue. So you are likely to raise two questions. One, where is the money for this project going to come from? Two, the government that is supposed to be winding down is committing the next administration to projects for about the next 24 months. Projects perhaps some Nigerians will say that could have been completed within the life of the administration. The counter-argument to that will be to say that, look, a sitting administration can remain functional till the very last day. Even on the very last day, the president can still make pronouncements. After all, government is continuous. But the thing is about the optics of the matter and how Nigerians respond to this. Because there's no way all these contracts, all these approvals that have been given, there's no way they can be completed within the life of this administration, which has made it very clear that in line with the Constitution, it will stand down, respect the rule of law on May 29, in line also with the electoral process that Nigeria has had in February and March 2023. Now, the other concern will be the figures that have been mentioned. I know the counter-argument is to say, oh, ordinary Nigerians don't understand engineering. They don't know construction. They don't know what is involved in the contracts. You having not seen the papers, the pre-award engineering calculations and cost calculations and all of that. But this same Third Mainland Bridge, this Third Mainland Bridge has been shut down for months, for weeks, for days, by both the Lagos State government and the federal government. So an average Nigerian is likely to ask the question, 6-point-something billion for the same Third Mainland Bridge? Minister Fashola tried to address that by saying, well, what the government had been working on had been the substructure. What government now wants to work on is potholes, removal of rails on the Third Mainland Bridge, and also aesthetics. Okay, they couldn't address that. They couldn't do that maintenance work in 8 years. It's only now that 6 billion is being provided. In some other countries, that 6 billion naira will build a brand new bridge. Okay, we don't have the figures. All of these things are determined by exchange rate and the state of your economy. But why is that an urgent thing to approve for the Buhari administration in its twilight? Then there's another thing about the Enugu-Onitsha expressway, where money is going to be, has been approved to bring the contract to over 49 billion total. And that's a variation. Why will an outgoing government be more interested in offering variations for contracts? Who is the contractor in charge of that road? What is the purpose of that variation? When a new administration is likely to come in, is going to come in, as we have been told by the government of the day on May 29. Okay, what if that government says, okay, Enugu-Onitsha Road, we don't want variation on it. We want to take a second look at the contract papers. That's another question there. And then as for the rail line from Abuja to Kano to Kaduna and all of that. Okay, it's now that it has just occurred to government that we need baggage sensors on that road, on that rail line. Baggage sensors. I thought I had one baggage sensor would be about 450 million. What kind of baggage sensor is that? Is it an artificial intelligence sensor? What are the details? These are things that the next administration, is likely to interrogate. And then customs. We're told the FEC approved 18.5 billion naira for customs to get new cars, over 300 vehicles, and to get, what again did they say? Yeah. To refurbish the auditorium.
The auditorium.
At the headquarters of Customs. And this refurbishing of the auditorium at the Customs headquarters will be repaneling, will be providing audiovisual materials. How is the Customs headquarters of Nigeria repaneling, audio, aesthetics? How is that important to the average Nigerian who is worrying about the value of the naira, who is worrying about access to opportunities? So in terms of priorities, what the Executive Council of the Federation did yesterday, granting these approvals, is likely to raise suspicion, it's likely to raise doubt, it's likely to have people being suspicious about the argument that government is continuous and government will function till the very last day. We can only urge the incoming administration not to be presented with a fait accompli on all fronts by the outgoing administration that wants to prove that it still is working and it will work till the very last day. And the confidence with which this federal government officials present these matters is even the more astonishing part of it, because these are otherwise educated, enlightened people. So what the Buhari administration could not do in 8 years, they want to do it in the remaining, less than 50 days of the administration or thereabouts. So that's what is most shocking. But they can continue with the ritual. We just hope that the incoming administration will be prepared to take a look at some of these things and act strictly, not in partisan interest, not in covering my back tendency that is popular in Nigeria, but in the best interest of Nigerians.
Well, thank you very much, Doctor. You've raised some very critical questions. And as you've said, in terms of the plans for the Third Mainland Bridge, which has a daily commuter rate of over 130,000 commuters on that road, plying that road daily, you would imagine that the government would want to put its attention on that in terms of ensuring it's safe for people to go on that road. In recent times, we have had a number of contracts awarded on that road. And like you said, the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, had distinguished what had been before and what they're about to do now. There's no argument for those who ply the Third Mainland Bridge that there are potholes that are embarrassing for a road of that nature. It's 32 years now, and it's the busiest road in Nigeria. However, in terms of safety, there have been concerns raised with regards to the potholes on that road, and also, of course, attendant traffic that it causes. So in terms of awarding a contract to fix that is not what is in question here. It's the amount of money awarded in terms of the 6.28 billion naira and the amount of time, 24 months, that it would take to finish that project. Bearing in mind, as was highlighted, that this government is going to be rounding off, even though they're handing over to another APC government. What we don't want to see on that road is a Lagos-Ibadan expressway situation and other constructions like that, where the same contract is awarded a number of times to the same expanse of road, and then there's no accountability, work isn't being done, or perhaps construction is interrupted midway because there was no money to complete, or in terms of an agreement not reached between the government and contractors. Very important. And then, even though he excused or tried to differentiate what the Lagos State government did on the 2nd of April when they diverted traffic to fix some portions of the road, it's still not clear, and I believe that we need a bit more information so that it's very transparent, that there's no duplication of efforts, therefore duplication of awarding of contracts. The same would be said of the railway contract that's been approved in terms of upscaling the security architecture. When the Kaduna-Abuja railway incident happened and the number of railway infractions that have happened, we had talked about the need to secure the railway stretch. Now, they're going to buy baggage scanners. The question then begs, what happened to cameras? Is this also going to be contained? Are we going to be asking for more money for that? Because this issue was also raised for Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in terms of not just the road, but also security architecture there. The minister gave some reasons why this couldn't happen around security, synergy with the security agencies, but this still should be raised in terms of not just securing the road, but also putting cameras in place to ensure that people feel safe applying those routes. Well, a 7-story building under construction collapsed in the affluent Banana Island area in Ikoyi. Several people are injured and many are said to be trapped under the rubble. No fewer than 7 persons were rescued from the rubble of a 7-story building under construction that collapsed. And as of the time of filing this report, emergency responders who stormed the scene for rescue operation were said to still be searching for the whereabouts of a victim that had been trapped beneath the rubble of the collapsed structure. It was learned that while some of the workers at the site escaped unhurt, with some sustaining varying degrees of injury, some other workers who were unlucky got trapped beneath the rubble of the collapsed structure. No deaths have been reported yet. Lagos State government says the collapse happened while concrete casting was being done. It's the latest in a series of collapses in Lagos in recent years. 2 years ago, a 21-story building collapsed in Ikoyi, killing several people. Another day, doctor, another building collapse unfortunately reported in Ikoyi, in Lagos State. Your take on this?
Well, the Lagos State Ministry of Physical Planning has been crowing that there were no casualties, no fatalities, to use their word, their phrase. But that in itself is no consolation. When you look at the fact that these building collapses have become very regular between November 1, 2021, right?
Yes.
When you had the collapse at the Fourscore Homes property, also in Ikoyi, a 21-story building that led to the death of 48 persons and 15 who were rescued. There have been so many repeated cases in Lagos alone, either in Ebute-Metta or in Oniru. There was another incident in Oniru, or also, in other parts of Lagos, Unike, and in other parts of Nigeria, particularly Abuja. And these incidents occur. Each time the incidents occur, the narrative is the same. The National Emergency Management Agency comes forward and says, oh, well, we have tried to rescue people. We got there very early. The ministry will say, oh, we're going to look into this matter and all of that. But at the end of the day, nothing happens, such that building collapses in Nigeria then become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they happen all the time. And there is no guarantee that after this 7-story building collapsing in Banana Island, which is a choice location for persons with a lot of money and who can buy expensive land, who can erect expensive buildings, and then you begin to ask, if you stretch the logic, why do these buildings collapse? If you buy an expensive plot of land and you invest so much money, okay, why even as a developer, you don't observe due diligence? So at the level of the owners of those buildings, those who construct those buildings, there are questions to be raised. In this particular case, this 7-story building that collapsed, we're told that there are 3 structures. There's still another 9-story building. There's still another 9-story building. Okay, what is the guarantee that those 2 other structures being developed by the same developer will not also suffer the same fate? So it's no consolation that people died. The same old questions that we have raised remain. The second thing that has been brought up by the Lagos State government is that the developers did not get requisite approval. Well, the truth of the matter is that the Ministry of Physical Planning is very slow in issuing these approvals. Can the state government do something about the issuance of those approvals? There's also something called material testing department in Lagos State. How effective, how efficient is that material testing department? Do they go around to do enough due diligence? who enforces the building code of Nigeria? There's a national building code. You can't just build anyhow. You have to, respect that national building code. But even in structures developed by the government, those codes, are completely disregarded. And that's why you don't have buildings in Nigeria, public buildings, that are exactly, friendly, user-friendly, particularly for physically challenged persons. Now, in this particular case, as of yesterday, the building collapsed at about 4:20 p.m. Up till evening, up to this morning, what we have been told is that nobody died. 7 persons were, trapped under the rubble and that they were rescued. Well, we don't know what will happen today. So NEMA and the Ministry of Fiscal Planning and other first responders should not give up. They should keep searching. They should keep looking. One of the reasons why we keep having this is that the developers are never sanctioned. In the case of the Fourscore property, Fourscore Homes property, the developer himself died in that particular incident. But there have been many developers, particularly in Abuja, that were told, they will be called to question. But has any developer ever been questioned or sanctioned? Well, maybe, but I'm not aware of anyone. So government just makes the usual noise, and then they paper over it, and it all goes away. And yet, the developers are part of the problem. The professionals in the building industry, they will tell you, developers like to cut costs. They don't want to give jobs to professionals. They are more interested in calling Baba Kabiru or Sule or Engineer Simon to come and develop. And Engineer Simon will reduce the quantity of cement. He will reduce the quality and the strength of iron and all of that. And then you have this kind of situation. So the whole issue is about safety. It's about standards. It's about codes. And government has a responsibility to ensure that, having seen the implications of this kind of development, the government has a responsibility to apply the rules so that we don't keep saying, people died. And the usual way is, God knows best. No, don't blame God for everything. Nigerians can also take precautions, whether it's regard to road transportation or railway transportation or building industry and the constructions that we have in the country. That, I think, are the basic points.
Thanks, Doctor. According to the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, between January of 2022 and July of 2022, there were no fewer than 24 cases of total building collapse. Between that time and now, a few others have been reported. It begs the question as to the quality and integrity and the process of approval of buildings, especially when these collapses are not from buildings that have been around for a long time. In fact, what we've seen in recent times are collapses of buildings that are still in the process of construction, as have been cited a number of times this morning, the Fourscore incident. There are a number of reasons, but practitioners have put the box stops with regulatory agencies in the state. As has been highlighted, developers want to maximize their profits, and so sometimes engage in sharp practices or cut corners just to ensure. What we've seen a number of times that the regulatory agencies will come out and say that we didn't approve that, or we gave an approval for a certain number of height or to a certain height, and then the developers went behind their backs. And then what people ask is that, what were the agencies doing when they flouted this directive? Because what happens is that they're putting the lives of Lagosians and Nigerians at stake by the dereliction of duties. Yes, some heads will roll, some people are suspended when another building collapses, but must we get to that point for us to do the right thing and safeguard the lives of Lagosians? It is important, beyond suspensions, that there are heavy sanctions and jail terms for both developers and regulatory agencies who are found to be wanting in the course of their duty. Because we cannot afford to see another building collapse before we begin again to scramble around and find out what the reasons are. So the first thing is, number one, regulatory agencies have to sit up. In any sane country, when you have a repeated number of incidents like this, there should be an investigation into that sector, and there should be a report submitted and action taken to prevent another occurrence. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened. The collapse that happened yesterday was said to have happened when the 7th floor was being laid. So they had gone up to 6 floors. And then in some quarters, they're saying there's a question around whether the developer got the approval to go ahead. And then the question then goes on, at stage 1, first floor, they didn't say anything. 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, until the 6th floor. No regulatory agency was able to identify that there was a gap there. There are issues to be sorted. Another thing we must learn is that when casualties like this happen, as in the case of Fourscore, if we can learn any lessons from there, it was said that insurance wasn't available. Therefore, the state government bears the brunt of paying compensation to the people who are affected. Money is lost, business is lost. And so we ask again around these statutory issues that ought to be sorted. Insurance, integrity test of buildings, approvals given, the boards containing the right information, and checks being done so that we prevent incidents like this in Lagos State.